Pete Alonso's market has changed drastically over the course of the last week and a half. On this episode of the True Mets Talk podcast, we are talking about what is it going to take to get a deal done between Alonso and the New York Mets. Let's get into it. All right, Mets fans, we are talking Pete Alonso on today's podcast episode. Before we get fully into it, I want to welcome you all back to the channel. Make sure if you are enjoying the content to smash the thumbs up button on this video. It's thoroughly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel if you are new here. And also, do not forget to please drop your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section below. Let's have a discussion. And it's becoming increasingly clear that Pete Alonso and the New York Mets are the best fit for a reunion this offseason. But with teams like the Nationals, the Astros, and the Yankees already addressing their first base needs, things change a little bit. The ball game changes a little bit, and the leverage changes a little bit for Pete Alonso in relation to the long-term deal versus a short-term deal that he could potentially be seeking. Now, if you missed the last episode of the Mets Hot Stove Live on this channel, this is exactly what I had to say about that situation and what Pete Alonso should be taking, in my humble opinion, if a long-term deal is not in the cards.
I also do think, though, only one team can sign Vlad, so it doesn't really matter if there's multiple teams in on a first baseman next year. You've got an option outside of just Vlad. That could be an advantage for Alonso being in the same free agent market as Vlad. But even let's just say he takes a 3-year deal, like you're saying, Rob, which could still happen. That puts him at 33 years old. And if he produces semi well, that puts him in line for a Christian Walker 2.0 deal. The market is right here for Pete Alonso and the New York Mets to get this deal done. And if a long-term contract extension is not in the cards, clearly the Mets and other teams have this, I guess, fear of committing to Pete Alonso long-term. This could still be advantageous to Pete Alonso in taking a shorter term deal. Now, for me, there are really three options on the table. There's option 1, 2, and option 3 is a blend of option 1 and 2. Option 1 is simply take a prove it year deal, high AAV. We're talking 1 year for $30 million. Prove yourself, Pete Alonso. Show us in the regular season more production in the clutch category and also runners in scoring position like you did in 2022. And then maybe we'll think about giving you a long-term extension, whether it's in season or whether you go ahead and hit the free agent market alongside Vladimir Guerrero Jr. again next off season. Now, the one thing that I do want to say in that is that if Pete Alonso hits the free agent market with Vlad Guerrero Jr., there's still going to be a market for him outside of the teams that are chasing and pursuing Vlad Guerrero Jr. Vlad's going to be asking for $400+ million, maybe even $500 million. That's a given. There are going to be teams that need a first baseman that are not willing to go that far for Vlad that would love to have Pete Alonso on their team if he shows that he can be that 2019 or 2022 version of himself. And we all know Pete Alonso is not getting anything north of $250 million, no matter what he produces next season. So this could be advantageous for him if he's still seeking that long-term deal. The option 2 could be a straight 3-year deal, no questions asked. We'll give you the 3 years and you can hit the free agent market again when you're 33 years old, right? Pete Alonso's 30. He would be 33 in this scenario if he signs a 3-year deal, and he could go ahead and get another contract after the 3 years is done if he produces well, and he could sign something, as I mentioned in the short clip, a Christian Walker 2.0 deal, and what we saw go down with Walker and the Astros this offseason. That's another option. But there is honestly the most perfect option that really gives Pete Alonso the most protection. And if you are given all three scenarios, I'm sure Scott Boras would take this third option, is that we give you a 3-year deal. The Mets give Pete Alonso a 3-year deal. Probably, again, high AAV. We're talking anywhere between $28 to $30 million over, each season AAV. And we'll give you the opt-out after year 1. And the opt-out really is going to set up that scenario of going back into that free agent market next season in hopes of getting that longer-term deal. And that's really the last shot that Pete Alonso has at a long-term deal. If it's not this season, it's going to be next offseason with an opt-out in this scenario because nobody's giving him a long-term deal when he's 33 years old. So again, he's got this offseason to make it happen or next offseason. And that's really what I see. I don't see him signing a 2-year deal. I don't think there's going to be an opt-out after year 2, although that scenario could also be on the table. I think it's opt-out after year 1. You go into the free agent market with Vlad, and you get basically the scraps of that first baseman market. Because again, Vlad is going to be asking for an astronomical number, and there's going to be teams that want a first baseman that are not willing to go that far. I just explained myself, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but this situation is so complex, but it's kind of fun to talk about. We've also heard some murmurs, some chatter. It's been unconfirmed sources, but that the Mets are considering, or maybe have even offered already, that 3-year deal to Pete Alonso. Whether it's with an opt-out or not, we don't know, but there has been some hype surrounding that notion already. Again, it's unconfirmed. I have not seen it from a legit source, so I'm not going to talk about it as if it's legit, but there has been some, again, just chatter, and that's all it is for right now. But let's talk about maybe 2 other teams that could still be in on Pete Alonso, right? One is the San Francisco Giants. They are looking for better first baseman production and what they've gotten from their first base platoon, essentially, over the past couple of seasons. And that could be a perfect fit, although I think it's a little bit more unlikely than the next team because they just signed Willy Adames to a big contract. They are considered at this point, from what we've been hearing, the favorites to land Corbin Burnes for an astronomical price. If they are really cutting back payroll, they are not going to be in on a long-term deal for Pete Alonso as well. If they get word that Boras and Alonso are willing to go with a shorter-term deal, like we're talking about here between Alonso and the Mets, the Giants could be in play with that as well. And the other team is his hometown, the Tampa Bay Rays. If they move off of Yandy Diaz and find a trade partner for Yandy Diaz this offseason, it makes total sense for them to go ahead and splurge a little bit on a shorter-term contract. The Tampa Bay Rays absolutely make sense. Obviously, he's from Tampa Bay himself, Pete Alonso is, and you automatically get that power hitting first baseman more so than a Yandy Diaz. And I'm not saying Yandy Diaz is a bad ball player by any means. I would take him on the Mets in a heartbeat. But if you ask me Yandy Diaz versus Pete Alonso, obviously you're going to go Pete Alonso. So those teams have a little bit more hurdles to work through than the Mets do. It's very clear that this situation right now of any team that is in search or even in on the Pete Alonso market, the New York Mets make the most sense. It's just about how many years, what's the AAV, and is there going to be any opt-outs after year 1 or not on a potential short-term deal. So let me know what you think in the comments section. Again, this is very speculatory. There's nothing confirmed. I made this episode because, again, we've seen the Pete Alonso market shift drastically over the past week and a half, and we are all on Pete Alonso watch right now. So do me a favor, please. If you enjoyed this discussion, hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'm sure we'll talk about Pete Alonso again on a future stream coming up on the channel, or maybe even another standalone podcast episode like this one. And let me know what you think in the comments section, Mets fans. It's the True Mets Talk podcast with your boy CP. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.
Thank you for watching the True Mets Talk podcast. Make sure you're tapping on that notifications button and checking out all the latest content on the channel. Thank you.